Some of these videos that we prepare for you have quite a serious message. Today's one, we're going to do a little playful look at some advocacy archetypes and share some thoughts we've got around kind of common traits that make an advocate and approaches to advocacy. And hopefully you might see yourself in some of these archetypes and pick some tips up perhaps for how you might grow in other areas. So the first advocacy archetype we think exists is the silent resistor. And the person we've chosen to represent this will be Gandhi. So if you think about Gandhi's approach to advocacy, he was very passive in his resistance and very calmly but persistently used the word no. And by using the word no, he obviously said no to things, but through his actions he resisted calls and pressure to do things, and he asked other people to say no. So when he was banned, for instance, and there was a law in India at the time where people couldn't take salt from the sea, a famous story because the British colonial government had said that that's our trade, and the only people who can take salt from the sea were the colonialists who were then selling it. And Gandhi said, no, it's our salt, it's our sea, and he disobeyed that ruling and that law, and he broke the law, but it was very passive. And he sat and he evaporated the water off him and took salt from the sea. So things like that are very symbolic, I think, in advocacy. And I wonder how, as an advocate, if you are a silent resistor, what are the moments when decision makers might say something or request somebody does something, and there's just a very calm pause and almost an allowance, a permission is given for the person to say, no, I don't want to do that. And for them to resist, and as advocates, for us to resist that pressure that we might feel to go ahead with something when actually we don't want to do it. So there's something in advocacy about that silent resistor. The second archetype I'm going to mention is the other end of the spectrum from Gandhi. And this is the archetype of a Malcolm X figure. Now, I know Malcolm X is a controversial figure, but he does, I think he's able to teach us something about taking radical action. And whilst, I mean, I know this is a playful video, but we're not saying go and take violent action for people's rights. That's ridiculous. But there's something around Malcolm X's approach where he was radical, and he understood something about empowerment. He understood that it was for black people in America to change that system. It wasn't for white people in America to give black people power. That's not how it works. It's not for men to give women power, it's for women to take it. It's not for able-bodied people to give disabled. You get the idea. So that he understood that, and he was prepared to take massive radical action. And I think sometimes in advocacy we need that. We don't need the violence, clearly, but we need that spirit of being prepared to get stuck in and change things with action. So whether that's through campaigning or quite vocal and political movements, maybe that's something as advocates we could be looking at. The third archetype we're going to look at is that of Spider-Man. So Spider-Man's the rescuer, he's the hero, and he swoops in and saves the day. And there's something in advocacy where advocates can do that, and I've seen it, I've felt it myself. It becomes quite, it's almost like it's seductive, being the rescuer who goes into a meeting and it's like, dun, 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 I'm here to represent this person, I can protect your rights. And it's like you've got an invisible cape on. I don't think it's great advocacy because that kind of taps into your ego a little bit, but it's there, and heroes of course are brave, and that's what we like about advocates who are brave. So if you're a bit spidey with your senses, that means that you're the one that comes in and rescues and protects people from the threat perhaps of losing their rights. The next type of archetype we're going to look at is the helper. So we're going to think of Mother Teresa as that archetypal advocate who is selfless, doesn't care about how things look or are perceived. She's there with the most vulnerable people at the most vulnerable times in their life, and she is helping. And she is very self-sacrificing. If you're an advocate who does that, it means that you walk with people through difficult times and that you're there to help them. You're not fixing, it's about sharing that experience and just being there to help that person through whatever trouble or difficulty is facing them at that time. Another archetype we're going to use is the Dalai Lama. I think the Dalai Lama does something really beautiful where he playfully shines light on the truth, and he does that in a very childlike, not childish, but childlike way. And I think what that appeals to me, and I don't know if it appeals to you, this idea of simply putting forward somebody's truth. And when you become a truth seeker, that's kind of what you're looking for. You're looking for, what is the truth of this person? We're not couching it, we're not changing it into more palatable language or trying to make it fit the system. We are simply looking at what is the truth of this person and what is it that they want to say. And then you say it. It really is as simple as that. The other beautiful thing the Dalai Lama does is, with this playful truth seeking, is he shines the light on absurdity. And I see this a lot in advocacy, absurd decisions. There's a really famous court case where the adult had a condition that meant they had, there's a risk of a nighttime of them choking, I think. And the risk of this happening, on average, to people with this condition meant that they were at risk of choking, say, 2 nights a month. So the local authority famously paid, their offer of care was for support through the night for 2 nights a month. Absolutely absurd, the idea. But somebody signed that off. Somebody's actually signed that decision off. And I'm going to leave you with one last one, who is the Elon Musk character. And Elon Musk, I think, to me, he sets his own rules. And there's something in advocacy that, because we're outside of the system and it's independent, we don't want to collude with rules that the statutory services are making. We want to make our own rules. And Elon Musk does that. He's not just a rule breaker, but he's a rule maker. And he changes almost like the discourse of what the problems are. And I think in advocacy, we've got advocates who can do that really well, that they shift things back to the person and their perception of their life and their world, and then just ask those questions about, well, why do we have to do it like that? Why can't we do it like this? And asking those simple why questions. So I hope that's given you a little bit of food for thought as an advocate, and you might be able to see yourself and your colleagues taking on some of these traits. There isn't one trait that's better than the others. I think there's something in all of them that we can take from. So yeah, good luck.